Get
Yep.
started. All right. Hey everyone, I am here with Andrew Evans once again. He is a indie world cinema favorite here, and we've talked about Hands of Hell. We've talked about the Texas Witch. Now we're going to talk about a little something different because this Sunday, Andrew will be appearing on Naked and Afraid on the Discovery Channel, and that is something I never would imagine I would say on this channel. But I gotta ask, man, how did this come about? That's the first question.
Yeah, dude. So that's it's a pretty cool story. I've always liked to challenge myself and do crazy things. Obviously, and I'm from a small area in East Texas. Plus, film is kind of one of those things like people don't do that around here. It's people go to work in oil fields, stuff like that. And so I've always kind of liked to challenge myself in different things, but outdoor knowledge is kind of a thing here to where people just kind of know those things. And I've always been a fan of the show, and I was like, well, I think I could do that. It would be hard, but I think I could do it. So I sent auditions in, and nobody would ever hear me. So I'm like, well, what can I do for the casting directors to hear me? Well, because I'm connected to the film world, I got IMDb Pro. And so I looked up the casting directors and I found their personal email. And I was like, hey, so I know this isn't traditional, but hey, listen, I know you got probably tens of thousands of people you got to go through, and I really want to be on this show. So I hope I hear back from you. And overall, I was like, well, maybe that's a one in a thousands or millions of a chance that it happens, but at least there's a chance, right? So I left it at that. And then around Christmas of 2024, I looked at my email and he had messaged me back and said, hey, Andrew, this isn't traditional how we go about it, but we love the enthusiasm. So let's talk. And so I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is why I want to do it. This is what I can bring to the table. And they said, we love it. Let's make it happen. And they confirmed in March of 2024 that I would be going to Zambia, Africa. And then in April, I shipped out and I did my challenge in Zambia, Africa. And so that's pretty much how it happened. It happened really fast. I mean, within just a few months of emailing them to finally doing it. And it's interesting enough, Nicole, my partner on the show, was doing something very similar, except she found all of their social media platforms. And she was commenting them, hey, I want to be on the show. I want to be on the show. I want to be on the show. And so I guess maybe it just worked out that way to be like, hey, let's put these two people, these super fans together into this episode.
Wow. I gotta ask because me, I've always been a fan of like South Africa in a way. I always wanted to go to South Africa. It's still on my like 5-year plan. But I gotta ask, what was it like shooting in Africa of all places on this show? That must have been quite the experience.
So it is eye opening. So this experience with Naked and Afraid was beyond just the entertainment part of it, which is just being on the show, but the travels to it and seeing the environment there. Americans get very, I think, I don't mean to be disrespectful to most Americans, but I feel we're very ungrateful for what we've got. And you don't know what you don't know, right? You only know what you know.
Mhm.
And going over there and I see the way they live, it's almost tribal in a way, or at least how we would describe it as. And it's very eye opening and very, like, it makes you want to do something about it type thing because you see it on TV
Mhm.
and you think, oh, that sucks that people live like that. But once you see it and you can touch it and you can hug it and you can hand it water. And when I say it, it's the environment, the people, the ideas, all those things, and the energy of it. And you can finally say, this is real now. And it's interesting to say, well, you see something on TV, a third world country, and you think, oh, it's real, but you can't feel it truly. And once you feel it truly, it's like, wow, I'm blessed and happy and lucky, whatever you want to word it, to say I don't have those problems. But no human should have to have those problems. So it was very eye opening to go over there and see it. But just traveling because I left from Dallas and then I flew like 22 hours to Qatar, which most people don't know where Qatar is, but we hear it all on the news now, which is right next to Iran.
Mhm.
And then I went from Iran to South Africa, and then from South Africa to Zambia.
Oh wow. Where in
Mhm.
South Africa? Is that Cape Town you had to go to?
Yeah, I think I can't remember the exact place where it landed at, but I think that's where it was, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's awesome. That must
Mhm.
have been a crazy like trip, going all the way, spending all that hours just traveling from all these stops. Like, did you get to
Oh,
experience a little bit of like at the airports, like how things work there as well, like in the various airports?
yeah, and it kind of opens up your because I talked to people that were most of them are Middle Eastern, and I talked to people that were from Iraq, Pakistan, and they were traveling to and from the United States, stuff like that. And the world will tell you we all hate each other. Christians, Muslims, Pakistanis, Iranians. The governments may do. There may be a slew of people that do. But when we were in that airport and we were just talking, we were just humans. It was during Passover when I was over. It was during Easter and stuff like that. So you would think, wow, this is a lot of stuff, you know. And we just talked. And I talked to a gentleman. He had lived in Iraq, and he was I'm not sure the technical term, but I guess where they were being killed, and in the 90s, and America allowed them to come over here for safety, I guess asylum seekers. And he had been here since the 90s, and he was going back to Iraq finally. But he had said that his family was killed by Saddam, and that he came to America and he opened up these chains of gas stations and got very successful. And now he was going to go back home to Iraq and finish out his life there. And I thought that was a really interesting story to say, well, we've heard stories and documentaries of what people had to endure with Saddam in Iraq before Bush, but to actually speak to someone that had those things, it's very eye opening, and that's like I said, it's so much into it beyond just the show.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And so my next question is, you got paired up with another super fan, Nicole. What was she like as you guys were doing the show together? Did you get to know her and get to understand like how much of a super fan she was as well and all that?
Yeah, I thought it was, that's part of Naked and Afraid is, yeah, you're naked and you're uncomfortable, you're in the elements. Most people are nervous to be naked, but you not only are you naked, but now you have another person that's thinking the same things. And they're thinking, well, are they judging me? And I'm thinking, is she judging me? Vice versa. There's all these emotions to it. And so before you're even in the challenge, you're already psyching yourself out of who this individual is going to be. And a lot of the shows, they've changed it up a little bit to say, well, it could be two guys, could be a woman, could be, someone that's transgender. There's all these different elements to it now. And you're thinking, well, who are they? And I'm not one to judge anyone or
Right.
any of those things. I'm very open minded, but it's still like, well, what if they judge me, and stuff like that. And when I first met her, um, of course, not to give too much away, but of course, we've seen the pictures and everything. She walking out there, and I see that the purple hair, and I'm like, oh, well, at least we're not going to get snuck up on by a line or anything like that. They're definitely going to see us, So I was very grateful for that. But overall, not to give too many spoilers or anything, but I don't regret having Nicole as a partner. I can say that, whether it was through the goods, through the bads, um, I definitely was lucky to get a good one.
That's awesome. So
Mhm.
can you describe some of the stuff you like had to do throughout this challenge that what can we expect to see you um do in this challenge is like some you don't have to not without spoilers, but can you give a description of some of the stuff that we're gonna see
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of people, that maybe they're familiar with the show or maybe they're not familiar. It's in the title, Naked and Afraid. You're butt naked. It is very, very real. The blurs are not pretending to hide something. You are 100% naked for the world, lions, tigers, whatever's out there to see. And it for me it was that wasn't too hard of an obstacle, but you don't realize, like, especially, which I'm an outdoors guy, I like to go in the woods and walk. You don't realize how much clothes protects you until you actually get out there and everything's running across your body, every thorn, every blade of grass, that everything that can possibly cut you. But also you just think that the sun. You think, oh, well, let me put some sunscreen under my eyes, maybe on my forehead, ears, or something like that. Well, one, you don't have sunscreen, but you don't realize how bad the sun touches parts of your body because it never happens. How many times can you say, oh, I'm sure there's a few people out there that are nudists and stuff like that, but how many people could say, they had the blurring sun on them? They can't go inside. The sun just hitting them right in the thing all day long. Most people can't do that. And so it was the naked part was just learning to feel things that you've never felt before.
That's crazy. crazy. Oh my gosh. I don't think I could do that. One, I'd be scared too, but also I would see like, yeah, what if they judge me as well? So yeah, I'd totally get where that's coming from. And, I mean, I can imagine it must have been like blaring hot in Africa considering the climate at the time. But,
Yeah, because when we left here, it was still springtime. So at least in Texas, it's probably I don't know, 50s at night, 60s ish, maybe 70s, 80s during the day. So not too terribly bad in the spring. And then you take a 24, 26-hour flight and you get off, and the next thing you know, it's humid like it is in the summer in August here, probably 90 to 100 degrees. It's around the equator. So it's hot, and your body hasn't had time to adjust to where at home you say, okay, well, you go from 70, 80s, then you slowly go to 80s, 85, then 85, 90 over a course of several months. Well, your body's used to winter and spring, and then all of a sudden, boom, 24 hours, it's hotter than hell. And so that there, not to give too much spoilers away to it, because that does play a factor into a lot of things. With that, it was something to get used to for sure. But a lot of people think, oh, I couldn't get naked. I can't. That it turns off really fast because the brain doesn't realize this is a TV show. The brain says, I'm starving to death. I'm dehydrated. We just seen a lion. We just seen an elephant roar at us. And so it's like it doesn't react to a show. It says this is real. And so the least of its worries is I'm naked. It's thinking, well, what can I eat? How do I get away from this lion? How can I get to safety? And you can tell yourself, it's just a show, it's a show, it's a show. Yes, these things are all very, very real. And something could go terribly wrong here. Your body doesn't care. It says I haven't eaten in X amount of days, and it reacts to that.
that's crazy. How long were you in Africa for during the shoot? Like how long did you have to be there for?
Yeah, so I flew in and they gave us about 3 days to kind of get used to because it's a different time zone. It's a whole different part of the hemisphere and everything. Um, so 3 days to get used to it, and then we were there for a total shooting for 2 weeks, so 14 days. This was our first one, so we did 14 days, and then we were there for 2 or 3 days after before my flight had left out. So I was there for all in all for almost 3 weeks.
Oh wow, that's crazy. So, you being an indie filmmaker, I got to ask this: did this experience inspire you to possibly want to do a film in that region? I'm not saying a naked one, obviously. I mean, like,
Hmm. Yeah,
that
yeah.
inspired you to eventually do maybe a film about these elements down the road? Because, I mean, from what you experienced, it sounds like, as you said,
Absolutely.
people can definitely learn a lot more, and film was one of the best mediums to use that in.
And I think for a lot of people, it's it's hard for people to wrap their mind around something that they don't understand. And I think that's a very unfortunate thing in America is we have all these cultural things, and none of them's wrong. It's they don't understand, they don't know. And I even said this multiple times in the show is I don't know what I don't know, and everybody else doesn't either. But arrogance can get in the way of what I don't know, and to say I'm going to shun this because I don't understand. And even though I'm a Christian, I don't shun anyone, no matter what walks of life there are. And a lot of Christians get bad reputation on shunning different groups and stuff like that. And I do none of those things. And I think that's what humanity needs in as far as America. But as far as getting people to understand that is a movie has to really touch people and dig deep into those things to where it's hard to just say it because people hear it, but they have to see it. And that's where film can come into place for people to really be able to, as close to touching it as they can. And it's hard for, especially in today's world, because film it costs so much money to make these movies, and it can be a big risk to say, well, what am I going to try to get an audience to touch and truly feel? And that somebody would have to take that risk to say, well, is this important to Americans or is this important to humanity to get them to feel and touch these subjects? And for some people that are open minded, they may give it a chance and say, well, I want to feel that. To where others, they're stuck in their ways and say, that's Africa's problem. That's so and so's problem. That ain't none of my business. until they want it to be or fits their narrative to say that's their business. But I think if humans would think of it as a whole and say we're all one, we're a one physical or spiritual thing. And if we're able to work together and figure it out, I guarantee you we're not bombing Iran. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. We don't have these cultural issues because really that's what it comes down to is different cultures. Now, some of these cultures can be evil. They can be bad. But, there's a lot of ideas on how to do it and how to make a movie like that. But like I said, it's a gamble because of just how one indie filmmaking is tough. But if you can build enough platform, a big enough platform to have your audience, so you can say, well, I'm guaranteed this, this, and this because of the audience that I have created. You have that, and then you get pick up other people on the way.
Yeah, and with the right people, like in that area, you might be able to, make it happen in a way too. Because, I'm friends with filmmakers and actors from various parts of the world, including
Mhm.
South Africa.
Yeah.
I've become acquainted with a bunch of actors and filmmakers from that area, and I get to hear a lot about the stuff they put out, the stuff they bring out and to the table, and some of it does involve South African history, and it made me learn it like when I around the pandemic, I really got involved with South African cinema, like where I ended up researching it and learned so much about it, where I didn't know that in the 70s during apartheid, a few Afrikaner filmmakers who were white decided to make films for the black audiences who were shunned by the government, but they did it, and somehow one of them convinced the government, to let them make the films, but only we just won't scream in theaters. They had to scream in the local villages and churches, and because of what they were going through at that time. And and I'm hearing about this and doing the research, and it was funny enough because some of my friends or acquaintances, they're from the newer South African cinema. So when they
Mhm.
heard that they heard about this, they were just as stunned as I was when I first heard about it. So I totally get what it's like to understand that history and that culture, and hopefully that those can be more like that down the road.
It's interesting, because Americans think that we're the only one with all these different cultures, and I think that could be play a factor why Africa struggles like it does. Is there are so many cultures in Africa. Africa's huge, and it isn't just a in America a black or white problem or a Mexican problem or a Hispanic problem or a Canadian problem. Like these are things, issues all over the world that are not unique to us. And until you leave and experience them, they're different, but we're all human. And it was interesting going there. And we would have the filmmakers, some of them were from America, some of them was from over there. And it's just interesting because they all speak so many different languages. In America, usually most people just speak English. Well, over
Mhm.
there, they can speak Zambian. Most of them can speak some Dutch plus English. And I'm like, well, that's pretty impressive. How many Americans can speak more than one language, much less three? Like there was one time I was listening to them and they would, let's say they were speaking English, but they forgot a word that they don't know how to say in English. So they would say it in Zambian, and the other person would know what they were saying, or they would say it in have a conversation in three different languages because they didn't know the words of how they were supposed to say it. And I thought that, well, that's impressive. That's very intelligent. And but the big problem with I think Africa is the governments over there. They have a chokehold on them over there on what you can do, what you can't do, what you can make as far as entertainment, what you can't make in entertainment, and stuff like that. That's a big struggle for them over there.
Yeah, it is. I've watched a lot of African films, not just South African, but I've watched what's called not the Nigerian films, the Nollywood films, and the
Mhm.
Wakaliwoods, which I think is Uganda. I've seen some of their films, because they have gotten viral. They gotten viral in the U.S. There was one called "Who Killed Captain Alex," and it was
Yeah,
like this really cheap Ugandan action film, but somehow someone posted a clip of it, and the movie ended up going viral, and I'm watching them. These are filmmakers who are in these countries that have these crazy governments, but yet they still try to do their best to live their dreams of wanting to make films, and I have respect for that.
absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And they're creative with it. And I think it's while it is unfortunate that they have restrictions, I think it makes them more creative to say, well, we have barriers, but we're going to do it anyways. It creates a new element in the brain of how the thought process works for them to say, well, I can't do this, this, and this, but I'm still going to create. Ain't nobody shutting me down. And that's very impressive.
Yeah, and then what's interesting was the films for in South Africa for the black audiences. Once apartheid ended, these movies just like disappeared off the face of the earth until 2013. A local company in South Africa found a whole bunch of them, and they just like, you know what? Let's re-release them because we want to bring our film history to the world. So they ended up re-releasing these films, and they're now, you can now see like half these like old movies that were only allowed to be viewed by black audiences in these really small areas,
Mhm.
and now you can watch them wherever because they're trying to show their film history. And again, I have total respect for that, and I think that's awesome.
It's well, and it's so diverse in the sense that most people have a very general idea of Africa and what it's like, and they pretty much put it all in one thing that says this is Africa. And I did that to a degree to say, well, this is what I believe Africa will be. And when I was there and I was traveling, I was talking to people, it's not like that. Now there are some things that says that that's Africa, right? And then there's other parts of it that says, hang on a second, I was wrong about that. It's not those things. And it was just very humbling, but also eye-opening in the same sense of like we're all in this together. Like I truly believe that. Like I'm not just saying this, and I'm not one of those crazy conspiracy theorists. But like when I seen it, their problems are our problems. They view the world. They see American news. They know what the crazy crap we're doing here, and they're
Mhm.
thinking this is ridiculous. Like, what are y'all talking about? Y'all are on a pedestal of world dominance that can influence anything, and this is the crap y'all are doing. To say that you have all the luxuries and whatever you want to do, and this is what y'all arguing about. This is what y'all worried about, and it's so amusing to them. And I'm like, I can't believe y'all keep up with us. And they're like, yeah, I mean, it's they almost view us like a TV show when they watch our newses, and they're like, we're arrogant or ignorant to say that they like you do realize Fox News and CNN is a quarter, one's head, one's tails, but it's the same piece. And I'm like, yeah, but most Americans won't say it that way. There's their side and that side,
Yep.
and they're like, but it's the same thing. They're just it's the opposite side, and they'll sit there and watch it, and they're like, it's so silly to them, but yet they're influenced by our cultures and stuff like that. Now it takes them longer to see the videos or see those things, but they mimic us. It's almost like we could be such an inspiration to the world if we could get the people in place to do it. And I thought that was really cool to say if we stood up and got this thing right of what we could do for the rest of the world. But instead, here we are. And it's not just government, but also films, movies, entertainment. They look up to us to say, well, what is America doing and how can I do that?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, nowadays, let's just face it, the A-list system is more just remakes or adaptations, which is why I love indie films more because they're more original. They may get inspired by A-list, but they somehow put their own spin on things. And that's why I have, you
You
know,
watched the new Spring yet?
hmm?
Have you watched
Yeah.
the new Spring yet?
Actually, I went Saturday.
I
I
did
saw it
too.
on Saturday.
I
So
did too. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I did too. I
yeah.
always listen to these films and I watch them and I'm like, I've gotten used to um, Hollywood, in my opinion, not being very creative. And I think most people can agree that they've kind of dropped the ball on a lot of creativity as far as what things go. And
Right.
I'm not trying to sit here and be so arrogant, say, "Oh, I'm better than Hollywood" or this or
Oh
that. But it's
no,
like,
no. But
yeah, yeah. But
it's
it's like,
redundant. It gets redundant. The only thing I liked about the screen films is that they don't stick to one killer. It's like it's a mist for me. It's a mystery. You got to keep
yeah,
guessing who. So that's why I like the Scream franchise because it keeps you guessing who the killer could be. And
yeah.
I gotta admit, I did get one of them right. When I
Oh,
was like,
oh,
I knew
yeah.
right
That
away. I knew
one,
right away who one of them was easily. But the other one, I was like, oh, okay, I was not expecting that.
No, but I felt it was a little bit, not to give too much spoilers to Scream. I felt there was this story in my mind, and I said, "This is how you do it." There's been one character, one that the cliche is you shoot them in the head, and
Hmm.
there's one that's never happened to, and I felt this is a perfect opportunity, and they did something that was very, very cool. I thought
Hmm.
with how they used modern day technology. I thought that was cool. But in one of the killers, I got right too. And the other one, I was like, oh, that was very interesting. But I felt
Yeah.
it was almost like, uh, in Star Wars when they said somehow the Emperor returned, so they just threw him in there, and it was like,
Oh
well, why'd
yeah.
they have to bring the Emperor? I felt it was kind of like that. It was like, well, why him? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And overall, though, I feel it was one of the better ones as of late.
Yeah.
As far as stuff like that because of what they decided to use with modern day technology. I thought that was interesting.
That's the one. That's the one thing I really liked, especially, and I will because everyone knew already. But the way they did Matthew Lillard's character in this one, I think it was brilliant how they used him in the film. But
Yeah,
there was one character I was not even expecting to show up, and when they showed up, my mouth dropped. I was like, no.
yeah.
Like there was one particular character, I was like,
Hmm.
I did not expect that character to show up. But
Hmm.
yeah, I that's all about the screen. But did you also hear that they're going to do a Texas Chainsaw Massacre series now?
I did hear about that. Now that is it A24 that got the rights to
Yeah,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Now Glenn Powell is producing it.
yeah,
He's not going to be in it, but he's just going to be a producer.
yeah.
So
And I'm into obviously from Texas.
yeah,
I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but you might be surprised as for my favorites. My favorite was the ones in the early 2000s. Like that, there was
yeah.
just
The reboots.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, man, I love those. Those were good.
Yeah, I kind of liked the 2017 one because they kind of did something with the prequel Leatherface.
Mhm.
The way
That
they
was interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, I liked what they did with that, making it like Natural Born Killers meets The Usual Suspects. And I was just like, okay, I like how they did it. I thought it could have been a little better executed, but that's not their fault. I don't think I'm not blaming the producers at all. Again, it's an indie film. They only had a minimal budget, so I am curious to see how they're going to do the series though. I wonder if they're going to do it like they do with the video game, like make it maybe a few months before, or maybe a little bit before the actual movie, or somewhere like a bridge between one and two. Now I'm thinking about it. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I'm curious to see it because that is one of my favorite all-time franchises.
It's interesting, and I was going to see what you thought about it. Haven't you noticed a lot of these horror movies that are typically very long, even with Welcome to Derry, they're going to TV series, and with the new audience, their attention span is just so small. And I heard that they're doing a Friday the 13th TV
Yeah,
series. How
that's coming in December. Crystal
Yeah,
Lake.
yeah, yeah. And how many more big time movies, especially horror, are going to transition more into TV series, potentially based off of because that's the cliche everyone's talking about is everyone's attention span is so short that no one wants to sit there for an hour and a half to 2 hours, but they'll sit there for 45 minutes to an hour to watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So I got to ask, is there another horror movie you're playing? Because I know you already got Hands of Hell, you've done Texas Witch, two of my favorites.
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you
So
actually,
yeah, I definitely want to do it. I want to do a Texas Witch too. That's a big thing that uh, I've been talking to Jonna about and have been kind of racking my brain on to say what I want to do. And there's several different approaches to it. I've been waiting for a couple of things with Texas Witch and Hands of Hell as far as the business side of it, and which is coming to a solution really soon. And in hope, and just been waiting on Naked and Afraid as well to air because I'm still under contract with them to say, okay, well, do they want to? Not spoilers. Do they want to bring me back? Do they not want to bring me back? For another season or whatever. To kind of work around those things and stuff like that. But it ain't over for Andrew Evans and making movies or anything like that. There's more coming. It just unfortunately it does take time to do so.
that's awesome. Well, you know what? I'm actually excited that you're gonna be on Naked and Afraid this Sunday. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out to see how this goes.
You
And
recognize any of this? So
That
this is
was
gonna be
fun.
my bag that I wore in Africa from the show.
Oh,
There's the
wow.
necklace. This is my hook and line. Not to do too many spoilers, if I did not catch any fish, and then my pot that I use to boil
Oh,
water
man. Oh,
and
that's
stuff like
cool.
that. Yeah, yeah. So I got all that back there. Oh, yeah. And this is my spear that I made while in Africa. So this wood here is
Oh,
from
wow.
Zambia. I'm not sure what type of wood that is, but um, I
Oh,
found
that's
it.
pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah. So I got all that. So I'm all geared up. We're what 6 days away now from
Yep.
that. It'll be on Discovery, and then I think after it initially airs, it goes to HBO at some point, Hulu and Discovery Plus. I think YouTube TV or something like that. But yeah, it's coming, and I'm excited. I've gotten a lot of my social media has been blowing up, which is a good thing that translates to stuff for the independent work that I do, and hopefully that it helps. But also, it was a fun challenge, and we'll see what becomes of it.
All right. Well, everyone, check out Andrew this Sunday on Naked and Afraid on Discovery. And also check out his films, Hands of Hell and The Texas Switch on various streaming platforms. Andrew, once again, man, it's been a blast to talk to you. And yeah, definitely going to come back and see what happens next. But thank you again, and you always stay awesome.
Man, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right. Everyone, take care.